You can't indict a sitting president? It's not in the Constitution. It's not even a law. It's a guideline.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
Bill Maher's an interesting guy. He's firmly anti-SJW. He told the Democrats last week not to give in to woke politics. And earlier in this very episode, he had Bob Costas on, and they both talked about the dangers and toxicity of identity politics being fostered by some regressives on the left. That being said, he does suffer from a severe case of Trump Derangement Syndrome. He believes that Trump will not leave office, even if he's voted out, but will have to be forcibly removed.
You've suggested he may not leave.
Yes, I've always said that. He's going to go when he wants to go.
And he wanted the economy to crash in order to get people to turn on Trump. He's followed up this rhetoric on his last show, going even a step further, stating Mueller should have broken the rules, broken the law essentially, in order to indict Trump, even if the facts didn't justify that.
Preet Bharara was on Real Time. I had one burning question. Could a different prosecutor have reached a completely different conclusion? And he said, yeah. That's all I need to know. I get it. Mueller's a Boy Scout, a straight arrow. He played it by the book. But you may have noticed for the past 3 years, we're kind of been off book. And greatness sometimes means not doing everything by the book. Thomas Jefferson made the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, doubling the size of the United States, without any authority to do so. But history called his name. That's what Spielberg's movie Lincoln is about. Even after the Emancipation Proclamation, black people were not free. That required a constitutional amendment initiated in Congress. And to make that happen, while he had a window to make it happen, Lincoln lied, bribed, freed prisoners, even fast-tracked an entire new state into the Union. None of which Mueller would have had to do. All he had to do is what people in the justice system do every day: use the law to come to justice, not be so restricted by technicalities that the bad guys win. Sometimes it comes down to you.
Now we should remember that Bill Maher was personally sued by Trump, a completely ridiculous form of legal harassment, because Bill, as a joke, claimed he would donate $5 million to charity if Trump could prove he wasn't the spawn of his mother having sex with an orangutan. This was in response to Trump's offer for Obama's birth certificate. So perhaps Bill's feelings on this are fueled mostly by a personal vendetta. However, Bill's statement on this portrays a more important point for us to remember: how incredibly easy it is for people to justify breaking the rules, breaking the law, once we view our side as possessing moral righteousness, and our opponents as a great evil. The examples Bill brings up are good ones. Thomas Jefferson not only broke precedent with the Louisiana Purchase, but his own moral code. Jefferson had been a strict constructionist and didn't believe the Constitution granted him or the federal government the power to simply buy the land from France. However, he put his moral principles aside and did it anyways, and the country was better off for it. Lincoln did engage in a series of shady, rule-bending, unprincipled actions in order to get the 13th Amendment passed. A clear moral good, where the ends certainly justified the means. The danger here is that there are tens, if not hundreds, of historical examples we could pull from, where a person broke the rules, broke their principles, acted hypocritically, and the results of it ended in a net positive. But the opposite is true as well, as for every Lincoln or Jefferson, there's 100 Stalins and Hitlers, bending the rules for their own greater good. Bill's logic could be used to justify Antifa violence, the stifling of free speech. Heck, Bill's logic could even be used to justify the very thing he fears: Trump not leaving office.
He was saying this in the last election, that it's rigged, except then he won and then it wasn't rigged. But if he loses, he's already planted that seed with his people that the whole thing is rigged, that they're all against him. You know, if you can't trust the FBI and the Justice Department and the rule of law and the judges, well, then obviously an election can be faked. So if everything is fake news and everything is rigged, when he loses the election, they're not going to accept that.
Now, I personally don't believe anything like this will happen, but we could conjure an imaginary scenario of Trump losing the 2020 election, but claiming conspiracy or foreign hacking. And he declares he'll remain in office until everything is sorted out. And he could, of course, use the same logic Bill is using here to justify it. Unfortunately, there's no easy or simple answer for the question of always sticking to your principles, always doing what is right, versus compromising and bending the rules for a greater good. I tend to lean heavily towards principles because I distrust humans' ability to be trusted. I didn't always feel that way. It was the emergence of the regressive left that changed my mind on that. If the political side with a history of supporting free speech, free discussion, and dissent could switch sides and become the authoritarian thought police in just a few short years, then we're all susceptible to falling into such tyranny. I find it interesting and disheartening that Bill, who feels the same way about the regressive left as I do, missed such an important lesson. As for Mueller specifically, I'm currently reading the report and working on a video for it on my main channel, a humorous and easy to understand summary. And so far, I would say, from reading the report, there's almost no chance that the Trump administration had secret dealings or colluded with Russia in any way. Yet on the other hand, it's also clear that Trump did obstruct, or attempt to obstruct, the investigation. But is that enough to impeach someone? It reminds me of Bill Clinton's impeachment. Yes, Bill lied and obstructed justice, but it was towards a nonsensical charge in the first place. Cheating on your wife isn't a crime. While Trump was accused of an actual crime, he didn't do it. So the issue becomes complicated. There are logical arguments that can be presented on both sides about whether to impeach or not. But people's opinions about whether they support impeachment or not will undoubtedly be shaped mostly not by logic or facts, rather whether they like Trump or not. For that reason, I think Mueller made the correct decision in leaving the choice to prosecute up to Congress and the voters. The important takeaway from this, I hope for everyone, is this understanding in our own lives when we feel that desire to bend the rules or discard what we know is right for some perceived ends justify the means. Because remember, anyone can come up with a good reason to do a bad thing.
You know, I'm not even claiming that people always think they're doing the right thing. They may know that they're doing something dishonest or insensitive or manipulative, but they almost always think there's a good reason for doing it.
There is no difference in his mind, his sick mind, between doing what is right for him and doing what is right for the country.
Don't knock rationalization. Where would we be without it? I don't know anyone who could get through the day without 2 or 3 juicy rationalizations. They're more important than sex.